So our blackberries behind me here quit producing about a month ago, and it's time to get in there and clean these guys up. We want to trim up these vines, clean out the weeds out from underneath there, and put some new mulch down. Now this is a thornless variety. I'm not quite sure what the name of the variety is. A fella gave us these. We replanted those from his blackberry patch, but they produce pretty heavily. But they also grow really fast and require a little bit of maintenance. So you can see some of the old growth here from where the blackberries were making this year on those vines, and then all this green stuff behind me is all new growth. It's really taken off in the last few weeks, and that's what we want to make sure we trim back. Otherwise, this vine right here, this blackberry patch, will sprawl everywhere and get out of control on you. So the first thing I want to do is come in here and trim these guys back pretty hard. I want to trim them down to about knee high. There's no worry about cutting them too short. They grow really fast and they'll recover before next year's crop. All right, so we got those trimmed and pruned up there for this little bed here that's about 20 foot long. Took only about 5 minutes, enough to work up a good little sweat this summer heat. Now when you're pruning blackberries, you don't have to be as particular as you would say with something like a fruit tree. Like they grow like crazy, so you don't have to be really particular about where you cut them. But I do like to cut them so there's a lateral limb right there below where I cut it, just to leave it some growth there so it can continue to photosynthesize and continue to grow. Now you can trellis these things, and Dad's got a big trellis for his at his house, but you still have to trim them every year. Instead of trellising mine, since this bed's so small, I just like to prune them back every year, and it works just fine. So now that we've got them pruned back, step number 2 is to put some mulch around these plants, and my preferred mulch for blackberries is wheat straw. I've talked about this in other videos, but I only mulch perennials on my homestead. I don't mulch annuals, things in the garden like squash or lettuce or potatoes, crops that turn over pretty quick, because I don't want to have to rake away the mulch to replant. And so we only mulch things that don't move and are there permanently. Perennials like blackberries, or maybe fruit trees, or maybe some big rosemary plants we have to the side of the garden. And this wheat straw isn't cheap. At $6 a bale, this stuff right here can get pretty expensive. So we don't want to have to use a ton of it, but it usually only takes about 2 or 3 bales a year for this blackberry bed right here. So I'm going to come in here and put a heavy layer of this wheat straw in around these blackberry plants, and then I'll take a little garden rake and come and rake in the beds a little bit to give it some nice structure and keep it well maintained within its boundary. Now don't that look a whole lot better? So it just took us about 15 minutes to prune these things, put some mulch around them, and rake it in. We don't have to water these guys. We don't have to weed them. That wheat straw would take care of all that for us. So these blackberries are pretty much maintenance free, with the exception, like I said, about 15 minutes a year to come in here and just clean the bed up a little bit. And then all we do is have to harvest them in early spring when they start making. So if you don't have any thornless blackberries on your property, highly recommend trying some of them. Very bountiful fruit with very little maintenance. We'll see you guys on the next video.